Welcome back to one of the Bears Football Plays YouTube channel. Today is Friday, December 6th, and I'm back breaking down Conference Championship Weekend. It's been a while since we've broken down any college football, all the way back to last Saturday. We're going to be looking at two matchups tonight. We have Tulane going up against Army, and then we have UNLV going up against Boise State for that Mountain West title. Also have a couple player props, but before we get into those plays, let's take a look at the plays from Saturday. I did tell you I was going to unload the clip. Had a ton of plays, 5-5 game picks, and 3-0 on the player props. Had Vanderbilt plus 10.5 loser. Started off 14-0, looked really good. And then Tennessee did their thing. Clemson -3. All they had to do was hold South Carolina out of the end zone on that last drive. Basically exactly what I said was going to happen in that game, besides the last 2 minutes of the game where South Carolina scored. Texas A&M plus 5.5. I don't know if they're good or not. I don't know if Texas is good or not either. They lost, I think, by 10 points, maybe 8 points, something like that. Iowa State -2.5. Better quarterback came out on top in that one. Syracuse plus 10.5, outright going up against Miami in the Dome. Alabama -11.5, covering the spread in the Iron Bowl. Arkansas +3. Missouri scores late. Horrible game to watch. Neither one of those teams are very good. Thought Arkansas was going to win outright with the bulletin board material Missouri head coach gave them, but they did not. It was the same thing as the Clemson game. Lost in the last seconds in the last drive. Ohio State -19.5. Outright loss going up against Michigan. Maybe one of the worst losses we've seen in college football for multiple years. Coastal Carolina, money line to get into a bowl game. They did win that game. North Carolina State to get into a bowl game, plus 3.5. They did win that game outright. Player props. We had Taylor Green over 34.5 rushing. Cam Scattaboo over 123.5 rushing. And then finally Diego Pavia over 39.5 rushing. All three of those did hit very, very easily in those games. So player props 3-0, game picks 5-5. Loved all the rivalry weekend kind of stuff. Everybody planting flags on teams, everybody getting in fights. Love that kind of energy. And I think that's good for college football. A lot of people didn't like the fights. I loved every single second of it. So very entertaining weekend. And we're going to try to keep things rolling going into conference championship week. And this is going to be an AAC conference battle. Army is the underdog coming into this game. Last week, Tulane dropped a horrible game against Memphis. Ruined their chances to make the college football playoffs. This game really doesn't have a lot of meaning anymore, besides the winner's going to win a conference title, because nobody's going to get in the 12-man tournament from these two teams. We're still battling for this conference title, though. I mean, both of these teams have a shot to raise that trophy, but this matchup's just not very important anymore. I mentioned the Memphis game. Tulane favored by 14.5 points. They were unable to win that game. Just a kick in the balls, man. It's just unbelievable that Tulane fought this entire season, won close games, and then the one game they had to win was Memphis, and they couldn't do it. I'm going to take Army here +5. It's a coin flip game. Anytime you have a coin flip game, I'm taking the points. I don't know why Army's even an underdog here. I think they can win this game pretty easily outright. The Green Wave, they have a great offense this season. They're scoring 39.1 points per game, but Army also has a great team, and they're scoring 34 points per game. People will look at the defense after that and see that the Green Wave are only giving up 18.4 points per game, but I think that's a little bit off. I don't understand how I don't understand how they've done that this season. If you've watched Tulane play, the defense has not looked good, especially on the road. They've given up 30-plus points in half of their games on the road this year. This game will be on the road. This is a team who likes to play at home. They're not going to have that luxury anymore. After dropping that game in Memphis, they're going to have to go on the road here. This is also a team that thrives whenever they have the ball, and that's something that they're also not going to have a lot of, because Army is the best team in the country at controlling the clock the entire game. We're going to see 50-plus rushing attempts out of this Army team. I don't expect Tulane to have the ball a ton. We're going to not see Tulane match the physicality of Army. I'm going to take Army +5. I think they win this game outright. Next play, looking at the Mountain West title. We've already broken this game down one time this year. UNLV did lose that matchup 29-24 going up against Boise State. And it might not surprise a lot of people. Both these teams played in the conference championship last year. UNLV won that game 44-20. These have been the best two teams in the Mountain West. It's been that way for 3 or 4 years. Boise State's been a staple in the Mountain West. UNLV's starting to get there, but I'm going to take UNLV +4. UNLV, the offense, it's been clicking all year long. They had that very strange thing happen at the beginning of the season where their quarterback left them after a couple games. He said he wouldn't get paid what he promised. If you have to leave because of that, I understand it. This is not play for your team anymore. It's NIL. It's play for your money, because you're not going to go to the NFL. You got to try to make your money now. I totally get that. But they brought in Malik Willis. He's a senior. He's been amazing for them this season for the most part. The senior quarterback, a dual threat guy, 2,000 yards, 17 touchdowns. Doesn't throw a lot of interceptions, takes care of the ball. He's also closing in on 800 rushing yards with 9 touchdowns on the year. He's been a dual threat guy all year long, like I said, and they have multiple great wide receivers on the outside, including Ricky White. He's gone for over 1,000 yards and double-digit touchdowns this season. And that defense for UNLV, they've been great as well, only giving up 22 points per game. They're top 50 in both points allowed per game and points given up per game. I think the best part about UNLV and why I'm going to take them in this game is because they're only giving up 101.1 rushing yards per game. That's going to be very important because on the other side is Ashton Jeanty, and I do think he's probably going to go for close to 200 yards in this game. He's just such a good player. They did bottle him up for the most part in the first matchup. I do think he's going to have more success in this game. That's just because that's who Ashton Jeanty is. He's even better than he was in that game going up against UNLV the first time. But Boise State, just like UNLV, nearly top 50 in both points allowed per game and points given up per game. I do think this is going to be a very competitive contest, and at the end of the day, I expect this to be a field goal kind of game. So I'm going to take UNLV with the points as the play. Let's go to the player props, and for the first player prop of the day, I really don't have to break either of these guys down because I've been talking about them all season long. You guys know exactly what these two players do. It's going to be Bryson Daly for the first one, over 130.5 rushing going up against Tulane. I've already broken down Bryson several times this season. Took him for a touchdown against Notre Dame. Took him multiple times over his yards. He's cashed every single time. No disappointment over here. The prop is over 130.5. The Green Wave have been decent on the ground this season at stopping the run, but that just doesn't matter because they haven't gone up against this Army team. Army's going to run the ball, like I said in the breakdown, probably 50 times in this one. That means Bryson Daly's going to have another 30-plus touches on the ground on the season for Bryson Daly. He's closing in on 1,000 passing yards, 860 right now for 8 touchdowns, but that's okay. He's not a passing quarterback. He only has 1 turnover through the air as well. Army, they have a fullback. It's a fullback at quarterback. He had 240 carries so far, 1,400 yards, 25 touchdowns on the ground. He's had 30-plus carries in 3 of the last 4 games, and he's coming off a game against UTSA where he had 27 carries, 147 yards, and 2 more touchdowns. I'm going to take him in this one over his total rushing yards as the play. Also, he's gone over this number in 5 consecutive games. So he's an absolute monster on the ground. And for the last play of the day, it's going to be a familiar face, Ashton Jeanty, to go over his total yards going up against UNLV. This is the number 2 guy right now for the Heisman. Some people think he should be the Heisman favorite. I am not one of those people. I think he's having a tremendous year. Probably the closest thing we've seen since Melvin Gordon. Definitely the closest thing we've seen since Barry Sanders. On the season, 2,300 yards, 28 touchdowns. The stats are amazing. And he's been battling through injury. He's been beaten and bruised all season long. And he's still out there game after game after game putting in the work. We have seen him have the workload every single game. I talked about that UNLV game already. He had 33 carries, 128 yards. I do think he's going to do better in this game than that one. He was also banged up a little bit in that first game going up against UNLV, and they put Band-Aids all over these injuries and just throwing them out there on the field because Boise State, they need him to play for them to win, I should say, in that game against Oregon State. I think that was the first time he's been relatively healthy all season long. He had 37 touches, 226 yards on the ground. He scored at least 1 touchdown now in every game but 1, and he was pulled in the second quarter going up against Portland State. This guy has only played, 8 second halves on the entire season? So that's also something that you can give him a nod for the Heisman. I'm going to take him over 174.5 because this is probably the last chance you're going to get to take this guy over his total yards. He's going to be in the NFL next year, running all over people, maybe in a Dallas Cowboys jersey. That'd be kind of cool. But give me the over 174.5 as the play. Let's go to the recap graphic. We're going to be taking Army +5, UNLV +4, Bryson Daly over 130.5 rushing, and then Ashton Jeanty over 172.5 rushing as the final plays. Guys, going to do it for the NCAA football plays and props for Friday, December 6th slated games. So you guys enjoyed the content, please drop a like the video, subscribe to the channel below. See you guys next video, and thanks for watching.